Welcome to episode 4 of All About Design, and I'm joined by Debs again this week, and we're going to be talking about how you can add character into rooms that are perhaps lacking some architectural features, whether it's for a new build or existing rooms that you have.
Sometimes you end up with a blank canvas. You might want to consider actual features just to give a little bit more texture and interest to that space.
Makeover Memos are back this week, and we've got 3 amazing ideas for quick and easy interior projects that won't cost a lot and give absolutely incredible results. This week centred all around one of interior design's best friends, the mirror. Before we get into that, let's dive into just about the most important thing in interior design. It's top of the list, space planning. You have to have your floor plan right for everything else to work. So spatial planning is the thing that we do first every single time when we're putting this scheme together, because if you have anything that's large scale and it doesn't fit, then the whole thing falls apart straight away. So best thing to do is get yourself a tape measure and some graph paper and just draw it to scale. Make sure you put in where the plug sockets are, where the light points are, and measure the ceiling height. That's a really important thing. You can go into as much detail as you like. Basically, what we want to see is where the placement of the furniture is going to be, how it's going to work together. And the things that then you want to start thinking about are what are your focal points in that room? So if it's the television going to go over a fireplace, or are you going to be wanting to look out the window to see the garden?
You're absolutely right, Sue. The floor plan is key to everything. There's lots of things that can be answered by a floor plan. So it is a key thing to have, I think, at the beginning of designing a room.
It's a bird's eye view of what your room will be like. So you can easily see whether or not you've got the circulation space to move around. If you've got somewhere that you need to be able to walk around, at least 90 centimetres is what you'll be looking to have around that piece of furniture. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about some of the main rooms of the house and what you might need to be thinking about before you go out and spend all your money on furniture that you either can't get through the front door. That's a very important thing.
Happens a lot. Yeah. Even around the corner, you might have a kind of pinch point. There's things to consider in different rooms, different needs. So space planning and floor planning is the way. It's just to kind of forewarn you it might not fit or it might not work. Putting the furniture on a plan, you might find that you can go larger. You can create flow space, but you don't know that till you actually get the plan.
Thinking about once you come in the front door, the hallway, when we first moved into that house, we had quite a wide console table. It was the first thing I bought, and it probably wasn't the best thing in many respects. It was made of mirror, so the edge is quite sharp and got damaged over time. And it was wider than it should have been. But when you're just in your house, you've got a limited amount of money to spend. I'd found this piece. It was definitely going to go there because it had nothing else. But now, years later, when I've redone that area, I've gone for a very narrow console table and thinking about the legs as well.
Yeah, so you can see through the legs. It gives that open feel. You can actually make places feel bigger because you can visually see walls.
Yeah.
That's a hot tip, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so looking at your floor plan, most hallways aren't particularly wide. It's an area that everyone walks in and you've got 5 or 6 people coming to visit you and everyone's taking off their coats or there's bags being thrown on the floor by the kids or whatever. A lot going on there. You need to think about, okay, one, can I put some storage in there? But if you can't, then just keep furniture sort of very small and slim.
I think so. And I think a hallway, it becomes a dumping ground. Now, you can consider lots of options to make sure that you've got, key storage in the hallway so that you don't see this clutter. It's just making the most of the space. And if you do built-in furniture, you can tailor it. You've done a lovely boot room recently so that you can make it work for your family needs.
Yes. Yeah, well, I was going out my mind every day when the kids came in because the bags get bigger and bigger as the kids get bigger and bigger and the shoes end up being huge. And we had a tiny little cupboard under the stairs and you'd open the door and throw it in. And then the next time you came to use it, you'd be on your hands and knees going in there to try and find it. So we actually took half of the single garage that we had and raised the floor slightly so it was equal to the house and built in. It's just changed my life. This amazing boot room sounds a bit fancy pants, doesn't it? But it is, I suppose that's the best description of it. And oh my goodness me, I've even got empty cupboards in there because suddenly I've got space. I've got a shoe rack, I've got coats on pegs, but it really is, sad to say, quite life-changing. I am obviously getting older, and these sort of things do give you pleasure, but everything has its place now.
And I think it's exactly what you've done there is what we're trying to say. Consider the space you have.
Yeah.
And if you can rearrange things, the hallway is a key moving area. It's a busy area.
Yeah.
Keep it free. Keep it simple. The first thing you see when you walk in the home and the last thing you see when you walk out.
Yeah.
So for the kind of keeping you feel calm, collected.
So space planning for that area, if you're starting from scratch, have a think, draw it on some graph paper to scale. And if you've seen a console table or a piece of storage, maybe it's a bench unit, it's got some shoe storage in it, some hooks on it, they're really great, all in one place to put everything in. But draw that on and just see, have I got at least 90 centimetres or a little bit more to get past that? If you haven't, then think maybe something a little bit slimmer that could be a console table, so you've got somewhere to put your keys, etc. But there can be about 30 centimetres deep instead. So that's one of the main places where you're going to get that congestion that you need to think about.
And mirrors. Get that light in the room. And it's practical as well when you're walking out.
Yeah, floor planning in your hallway is a good start to everything. So in a lounge, good thing to think about is the focal point. And will you have a TV over the fireplace? I've seen days of old, people had a fireplace, didn't have TV to worry about, but sometimes we've got a fireplace and a TV next to it. It's taking up quite a lot of your room and you don't have so many places to put a sofa. So a lot of people now will put TV above the fireplace and then you've got one place you're looking at and you can build your furniture grouping around that. And I'm a big fan of that. And there's quite a few people say, oh no, I won't be able to watch, it's too high. It's not. Maybe you cut out a piece of cardboard and stick it above your fireplace and see how you'd feel looking at it. But I don't think it's going to cause you any issues to look at that.
No, and I think you hit on it before about placement of furniture in the room. You don't have to have all big bulky furniture. And one of the biggest things in lounges is consider the sofa and the arms. Because if a lot of sofas have massive bulbous arms, which you don't necessarily need for comfort. So you could have a slightly wider seat, smaller arms. And one of the big things we like is slipper chairs where there's no arms. So it's freeing the space. The eye line is looking through the room and it's travelling. So it gives you that idea that the room's bigger. And that is just literally back to the floor plan, what fits, but consider little elements like that as well.
So if you've got view into a room and the door is right up against a sofa and it's got very high arms, you suddenly lost quite a lot of the light coming through the window, and lifting up the big furniture, have little legs on it. Yeah, you've got the light coming through. So especially in smaller rooms, it just gives that feeling of airiness that you might not get if you have solid down to the floor furniture. So it's thinking about placement of furniture.
How are you going to use the room? Is it a TV room? Is it a sociable room? So if it's sociable, you want enough seating that you can sit with each other together.
Yeah.
And that's where things like ottoman seating, armless chairs come in. So these can be optional pieces that you pull out and use in different ways. You can have ottoman seats that you can use for your feet as a poof, or you can use as an occasional seat. Really consider, what is the purpose of the space? You might realise 80% of the time it's just two of us in that room. But when we get people over, we want to have some more seating. And that can be multiple ways, can't it? It doesn't have to be massive permanent seating.
No.
Never gets sat on. It takes up the space, sucks up the light. It just makes the room feel packed.
And I think it's quite interesting because if you have same family always together, it's different. But if you have people visiting you and the only place you can sit is next to each other, sometimes you don't want to sit too close to somebody that you don't know that well. So it's quite good to have a couple of different seating areas and options, like Deb said. So one of the things we do often put into a scheme is a little ottoman or two that can be popped underneath a console. So it looks like a little grouping. It's really pretty, actually. So that gives you some extra seats as well.
I was going to say to your little vignette, I love the console and the ottomans because it looks so good, but it's so practical
Yeah.
on all levels.
Yeah.
You know, the aesthetics, kind of the arts and crafts movement again, isn't it? It works, it's practical, but it's beautiful.
Have nothing in your house that you do not know to either be useful or beautiful. Something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
William Morris.
Yeah, he'd be very proud. Really.
I think.
Yeah, I think that is the truth. Is don't just put things in. Think about how's it going to work. Do I need to have two massive sofas because there's only three of us, and actually one of us likes to sit on a chair?
You don't want it to look like a furniture showroom. So this is what we say to quite a few clients. Suddenly you've got 4 or 5 different styles. And I mean, more for eclectic, but that's taking it a little bit too far because it's just a bit of a mishmash. Do you really need this? Should we be thinking about how we can make this room really beautiful? Perhaps we'll use an area where you might have put a chair that you don't really need for a beautiful dresser. Do you have some beautiful artwork that you really want to sort of display? And that can be over a console. Not every part of a room needs to be stuffed full of furniture. So again, on your floor plan, be really critical. Consider it. Have I got circulation? Is it symmetrical or asymmetrical? Because you might be more drawn to something. If you're a very tiny person, you might feel you need symmetry in that room.
So you actually gained by floor plans.
Definitely, yes. Worth taking a couple of hours and live with it for a day or so, and then you will have answers to a lot of questions without going blind and going, oh gosh, how big that sofa should be. I can't quite open the door. Actually, because I've seen on plan that would be the case. Do I want to go for that compromise, or will I go for the 220 with a slightly slimmer arm because I can still get 3 bottoms on there quite easily?
I think am I right? I might be going out on a limb, but people try to fit the biggest piece of furniture they can into a room. And I get it. You want to accommodate it. It's very nice. You can do that without having to go overboard.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to say. Come back to your floor plan.
Yeah.
Restrictions, limiters, brilliant, because you know what you can go for. So bedrooms, they're probably one of the trickiest because they're not usually the largest rooms in the house, but we're always trying to cram a lot into them. And the first thing to consider is who's using the space again. We keep saying this, but it's kind of true, isn't it? There's no point making a room that doesn't work. Yeah. So is it a children's room which needs practical space for storage, and does it need to grow with them? That's a big consideration, especially if you're doing anything like built-ins. You have to consider they will change, their needs will change.
Yeah.
And built-ins, I believe, are the best way to get the most storage out of your room because they can be tailor-made to fit nooks, crannies, and actually straighten out problems that maybe you've got.
True.
So, but again, consider everything when you're putting them in because they are a permanent feature.
And they're expensive.
Yeah. And it might be that it won't work for you, but you have to think, am I having a double bed in here? Is it a single bed? So it's thinking about the flow of the room. Can I get to the curtains? I see this happen a lot. You don't want a bed against a radiator and a window. I know sometimes we are limited by space, but if you can consider it from the start, you may be able to avoid these pitfalls.
Definitely. Children's rooms, they need to grow with them. So I think it's about 6-7 years, usually between doing a room and then redoing it. I've done rooms in the last year or so for girls that are about 8 or 9. And then that's taking them into their late teens. So that room has got an awful lot to do. And, in that time, they're going to need desk space. They're going to need dressing table space. So quite often, with the mirrors that are lighting around it. Also, not just a desk chair. I always try to put in a nice little armchair or side chair. Another place, they don't have to sit on the bed to be comfortable. It obviously depends on the person. If you're doing a teenage boys' room, it'll be very, very different. So it's just thinking about the elements that need to go in there. Can they be built in? Will that help you overall? And I try and put it on the biggest bed I can, generally, because if it's a single bed, they might want a double bed in about 5 or 6 years' time anyway. Everyone likes a bigger bed. Think about the window treatments as well. Going to be Roman blinds? Is it wood slat blinds? If you're having curtains, have they got space to fall?
It all goes back to floor planning because you realise you're restricted, and this key stage will save you a lot of pain, and a lot of money actually, because you won't be making mistakes.
We're giving away all our secrets here, aren't we? Actually, we shouldn't do that.
Don't tell him.
Yeah. But do tell them how wonderful we are.
And also with the hallways, consider landings and spaces like that where you've got little nooks. And maybe wasted space could have storage. Just really be clean, like kind of inspector of your house and go around and just consider what space you're not utilising. I've done this in the past and it's worked really well. Use cardboard and cut out cardboard replicas of the size of the furniture. Because paper works, but it can kind of crease and not give you a realistic scale on the room. So thin cardboard, very good, means that you can come back to it time over time and move things around and play with the scheme.
That's really good. Then you don't have to keep redrawing your plan all the time.
It gives you a true vision of the scale, and it's fun.
Fun with cardboard. Well, you could take photos of the various different options.
Different size sofas, different combinations. It doesn't have to be perfect in the way of pretty looking. It's just the scale you need.
That's a great tip. So Makeover Memos are back this week, and I can't tell you how easy these 3 things are to do, but how big their impact is. So we're talking about adding some mirror into your interior, which is always a winner because it reflects light, adds movement, and gives an immediate high-end feel. If you have a dark wall in a dining room or a transition area, anywhere that you need a little bit of reflection, but it also provides an instant art installation feel, this one is just to simply install mirror within the panelling. So you can do this to any budget. If you want to customize the sizes, obviously going to put the price up, or you can source off-the-shelf panelling and off-the-shelf mirror tiles. People like IKEA and Amazon do them cut to size with self-adhesive backs as well to make it easier for you. So otherwise you would just use a mirror adhesive. Can't say that. So you install the panels on your wall and then the mirror just gets put within the space it creates. Amazing. Repetition, as you know, is always a winner in interior design. And just having 6 or 9 or 12 mirrors on a wall reflecting the light as you move around looks incredible. And it's relatively inexpensive to do. Also very quick. You can definitely get this done in a day. Just make sure you do measure everything out on your wall before you start. Nothing worse than going to all that effort and realising you haven't got enough space to stick the last mirror on. Our second makeover memo this week is so simple. And again, it's timeless, so it won't date. So it's money well spent. And you wonder why you didn't do this before, I think. I use this on bedside tables in particular, but it could also be used in other situations such as on a coffee table or a console table. And so you just go and get yourself a piece of mirror cut to size to go on top. Simple as that. And again, you may not want the bright silver mirror. You may want something that's aged or antiqued, or even the bronze mirror. But it's just so easy to keep it clean, saves staining and ring marks from cups and glasses, and more importantly, it reflects light beautifully. If you don't want mirror on that particular surface, you could just use plain glass. And it saves you from, again, the ring marks, and it makes it much easier to clean. Just make sure, very important point, that when you order any glass or mirror, you must ask for polished edges and tipped corners so they're safe for you to handle, because the edges otherwise are razor sharp. So your glass provider or mirror provider will make sure that's done for you. Usually it's 6mm toughened safety glass or mirror. If it's going on a tabletop. And the last little makeover memo is a tiny little idea, but again, really powerful. It's just to find yourself a tray that you love. And if it's got a mirrored bottom already, great. If not, you can get a piece of mirror cut to size. Or you could take a trip to somewhere like Home Sense or The Range or Dunelm, or one of those beautiful little antique centres we were talking about. And then on there, you just put things that look lovely in reflection as well. It bounces the light around. You can just put a beautiful vase of flowers, or you may have a little bowl with some fairy lights in, or some candles and little books. But whatever you have, it just reflects it beautifully. As you move around the space, it looks gorgeous and bounces back light from windows or table lamps, just like a little jewel sitting in the middle of your coffee table. So really, really easy thing to do. Doesn't take a lot of time or money and will give a big impact. I'll put lots of lovely images to demonstrate these 3 superstar makeover memos on Instagram and Facebook. And if you need any further information on this, don't hesitate to get in touch.
Another thing we wanted to cover today is injecting character and a bit more interest to maybe plain interiors. It could be a room you've inherited, or you've just built an extension and you've got this box with plain walls to deal with. And there's a good few ways that you can easily, what we'd say is an architectural feature. So that's something attached to the walls. It's fixed. It becomes kind of the next level up from the plain walls. So it's still a surface that can be painted, decorated, and given colour.
Yeah.
But just gives life to the room. It's an architectural feature. And you might not necessarily notice them because they are part of the room. Just they're kind of the unsung heroes, really.
Yeah.
And they can be manipulated to work with a historic home or a new home.
Absolutely. So 2 things that spring to mind. The first one was a house that was probably 15, 20 years old. And the client had a very large lounge, but it was just completely plain. There was no fireplace. It had coving, had skirting. But it was very, very plain. I suggested building in a fireplace with a chimney breast. So quite often you think, oh, don't take space out of a room, but this could allow that. And then it gave the room the focal point. So the fireplace went in, a wood-burning stove, television was on top, and then it returned back to the wall where we'd built out. We built in some wood storage and some display areas, great for all the games and toys to go in there. It worked. It was really successful. They were highly delighted because suddenly their room had character.
If you have got a home of age, 30s, 50s, 60s, whatever, consider something that is sympathetic to that home.
Definitely.
Kind of a lot of things get ripped out over the years, but equally in modern homes now, you can easily panel walls. We've looked at paneling a lot.
Yeah.
And love it.
Oh, it's brilliant. Well, this was the other example I was going to give. It had a 1930s house and it was a hallway, beautiful paneling on the side of the staircase, and it was solid wood. But then the staircase wall was very tall, sort of double height space, was plain, and actually what we did is copy the paneling from the side of the staircase exactly, so the scale and the rhythm of it onto that plain wall looked like it was built and made like that from the get-go instead of being installed probably 80 years apart. Definitely, you can build these things in, but obviously you don't want it to jar. You want it to look right.
Absolutely. And if you've got a little tiny bit of something in your home and you think, I love that, I like an architectural feature, you can take it through the home. So there's a link, especially with those kind of features. It's not samey because you can treat them in different manners.
Yeah.
But it just has that flow, which is really key.
But there's other things you can do. Wainscoting, could you explain what that is?
So wainscoting is paneling in, but it's only halfway up the wall. It's to the chair rail. It's the old style of doing it, really. A lot of rooms had it for that reason, to protect the walls from...
I think it's between third and half the height of the room proportion. If you have a picture rail and then you want to put in some wainscoting or some lower level paneling, you almost want it to appear like it's in thirds, because that's the magic number again in interior design.
But I think you've got a good craftsman in. It is a sightline thing as well, because sometimes we don't have straight walls, but that is a really practical way to have a hard-wearing surface. It's also an architectural feature. You can paint it. You can change the colour of the paint. You can go for something a bit bold. You can have fun with it, but it's the kind of essence of the wall rather than just a decoration.
Yeah.
So again, a good investment for practicality, but also beauty as well.
Yeah, they look really handsome, don't they? And then above it, you can go for paint or a mad wallpaper.
Yeah,
you can have the wallpaper still inside paneling on the higher walls. And of course, if it is a hallway, you can get paint that is high traffic area friendly.
Treat it almost like the same as skirting, gloss paint or a satin finish. Things like skirting boards, you can just be the top of them and create a thicker look, a bit more, add that extra missing link between it being bland and a bit more interesting.
And I think when you add paneling to a wall, because of the different light coming in through the windows, and obviously during the day, creates some really lovely shadows. And in the evening, when you've got table lamps on instead. Again, that's a different sort of look, but it's giving you a wall texture and character, which does need to be done well. The miters of the joins have to be perfect. It's attention to details.
Yeah.
If you get that right, it's beautiful.
And if you did panel the whole wall, use it like a wall, add artwork to it. It's a base. It still works like that. And lighting can be attached to it. You can actually dress it as well because it's a base rather than a finish.
If you're in English Heritage or the National Trust, go along and have a look at any of these beautiful old houses, and they're fantastic for getting some inspiration from. And another one to mention is tongue and groove.
That it wasn't as much a fashion. Historically, Victorian houses had wide plank tongue and groove in hallways with a bead across the top. It was the more accessible version of wainscoting in some respects. But again, when these things are painted, you just get such a great texture, the light we talked about. So easy to do and easy to cover up some blemishes. If you've got uneven or bad wall.
True.
It's actually a good way to take out half the problem.
Right. Yeah, if you've had some damp come in, you've had to have it repaired, obviously don't hide it. Solve the problem, but then you might just think, actually, do you know what? I can just make that look perfect very quickly. Something you were talking about was coving and ceiling roses.
Yes, some rooms, it's really beautiful, clean edge. So you can still be quite contemporary. Coving, there's so many different types out there. And also you can have them illuminated. So if you want that more modern edge, you can have lighting in them.
Yeah.
And that's another opportunity to give another level to the room. And ceiling roses, it just means that feels like the principal room, or it feels like a room of celebration. It's really nice.
It's gorgeous. I had a client who had a very cute crystal chandelier in their dining room, and it was quite old, and they were like, I think I've changed it. So I was like, well, hang on, let's put ceiling rose around it. Very simple one. It's so reasonably priced as well, so easy to put up.
Literally stick them up, and then there's usually a hole in the middle, and then whatever's on the lighting will cover up.
Yes, comes through.
These subtle things, you don't realise how much difference these make to the visual impact of the room.
Well, they really do. And I think if you walked into a room that just had a little bit more attention given to it, like a ceiling rose or like a really nice coving or some panelling, already, I'm sure you've added value to your home because it looks rich in history and rich in detail. So it really does take it up several levels.
And a lot of homes, especially if they're older homes, over the years, styles have come and gone, and coving and things like that could actually have been changed or downscaled. So it's an opportunity to inject the right scale again back into the home. And that is something to consider. You don't want to go overboard either, because it will just drag the walls down. So consider the age of the home, the height of the ceiling, and how you can enhance it.
And instead of doing a floor plan, you do a wall plan. So mark on your height and the width of the wall again to scale, and start working out how that style or pattern of paneling is going to work. Perhaps it might suit your room to have that. So you just work it out to scale, how it's going to look. And then your craftsman can come in and install that for you really easily. Takes about a day to totally change a very flat boring wall into something that looks like it's got age and history. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me again.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sue.
Always a pleasure. And join us next time. And we look forward to seeing you back. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to write in. We are at contact@allaboutdesign.online. And please, 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 if you enjoy listening to us going on and on about the thing that we're obsessed with, interior design, tell your friends and share and like our podcast and leave a review. That would be really helpful. Any questions or any topics you want us to cover, please do email us. That'd be great to hear from you. And we'll see you next time. Take care.